Welcome to the latest printed press. Back to our new season. We're starting tonight with a COVID program special, but I am back and it is the new season now, starting from September. So I'll be on live every week from now on. But for today, we've decided to do a COVID program special, and we're probably going to be updating our audiences every 2 weeks. But today we're going to be focusing on the rule of 6, and we've got Erim Metto, CEO of the TCCA, with us to inform us of all the different changes. Welcome, Erim, to the program.
Thanks for the invitation.
That's okay. It's lovely to see you again. Can you tell our audiences why we have relaunched the program?
Yeah, I think the important aspect around relaunching the program is that the rules and regulations that are in place are changing on a daily basis, and many of our community don't know what's happening. So what we wanted to do was to provide a forum where we could brief the community as a community association to state what is the actual rules and regulations, what are the grey areas and how they're actually being dealt with, and in regards to future planning, what we're planning and what other organisations are planning to put in place that will help the community to deal with these issues at hand.
Yes, definitely.
That's the reason. I mean, like ever since that the health and public health regulation came into play, which is the law which governs the rules that are in play, which is reviewed once a month and expires in early January. There's been changes which in effect are added to that law on a monthly basis. They also mean that we as community members have to abide by those rules. Some are not being enforced and some are being enforced. I mean, the clear ones that are being enforced are ones related to wearing face masks on public transport. Ones which are not so enforced, as you guys know, or as we all know, is that when you go into shops, it's very rare that you're picked up on not wearing a face mask. There are some stores that do, but many don't. You go to Sainsbury's or Tesco's, no one or very few people are wearing face masks.
That's correct. I mean, so we have clarity. A lot of people have been asking me this question, and I'm glad that you've put that as one of our questions, because I think it's very important to answer this one. Is what is the rule of 6?
So the basic assumption is that you have your bubbles, which are normally 6. One of these exceptions are if your bubble tends to be bigger because you have a larger family. For example, you have 6 children, then your bubble would be larger. But in general terms, they allow a family bubble, which is within the group that you normally mix with, to be no more than 6, which is a core identity that they kind of utilising. Now, last week, Priti Patel said that if 4 people meet 4 people on the street and they start talking, that's mingling and that's classified as an infringement on the rules. I would say it's not, but that's what they're indicating. It's reinforcing that the clarity of 6 people. When they're together, they should not be mixing with a group outside of that within the rules identified by the law, which is that you need to have 2 meters between groups and all the other rules in place.
Okay.
I think that's the main rule of 6. However, in saying
there are exceptions.
There's many exceptions, and there are exceptions related to if you're in a restaurant, if there's education groups, many schools are kind of operating and they have classes up to about 30. There's physical activity, there's place of worship. There's an endless list which has exceptions, which causes grey areas as well. So in effect, one of the things that we was discussing recently was when the rule of 6, when you go to a place of worship that's not in a religious place, for example, if you go to a church, that's a religious establishment. However, many churches use community centres as points of the community coming together, and therefore you have more than 6 people in that location, and that's a grey area. What they say is that the place needs to be COVID compliant. Then the place needs to be when you do have groups of 6, they come in groups of 6 and they do not mingle with other groups within that outside their group. But the whole environment can take up to 30. So there are exceptions to rule. There are loads of exceptions to rule. And I think that there will be changes. I mean, at the moment we're talking about 6 is the core number. Why is it 6 and why? The reason the rule came out in principle was there needs to be clarity around the aspects of people intermingling with other people, and how do you stop the spread, and if you can contain it within a smaller group, then it's easier to deal with it if it's spotted. So that's hence the clarity which they wanted to look at, which is that 6 people is a group, and that's what they wanted to keep down to. Now in other places, that bubble, or the definition of bubble, or how it kind of the names used for the bubble, vary. You know, they come down to 4, they go up to 10, depending on which country you are and depending on where you are.
Yes. Okay. I mean, it's a lot to sort of get around your head. And
Yeah,
what's good is that obviously this is something that we're going to put out on Facebook, and people can
yeah,
hear all the things that you've said. If it hasn't quite sunk in the first time, we can actually,
yeah.
you can go back and watch this program again. But how are the community, I mean, you've sort of touched upon it, but we'll just go into a bit more depth. How have the community facilitators and facilities dealing with the actual issue then? So what are you guys doing?
Okay. So back in July, we ended our last food run, but we vowed that all the support that's needed by the community will be continued by us, whatever way we can do it and how we can do it. We developed systems that allow the community centre to be used, because we found that many of our elderly who were isolated wanted to have some sort of social interaction that was outside of their own home environment, and being tuned into TV and being left alone. So we set up systems that would allow luncheon clubs to operate. We also want to open up our centre as a place that people can come for support and help and advice, and we've done that. But we've had to, in effect, go over the top to ensure that we're COVID compliant. We've got mats when you walk through the door. We've done a video which kind of covers every precaution that we've taken. We've got 5 sanitizers throughout the building. The building's washed twice a day. We've got markers on the floor. We've got one flow systems. We've got screens where there's substantive occupancy in the premises, and so there's lots of things that we've tried to sort out which help the community. And
Yes.
going back to what the exceptions are, what some of the exceptions is that we ask people to wear face masks when they're actually in the centre, when they can do. So when you're in closer proximity with other people where you can't maintain the 2-metre rule, then we try and push towards that. However, by law, what regulations say is that if it's a place of work, so if you're working in that location, then you don't have to wear a face mask. So we provide screens, but we provide face masks and visors for the staff. So there's a lot in place that supports the staff that working in the centre, and we're moving forward to try and deal with the new issues that come up all the time. So I think in the last 2 to 3 months, there's been at least about 6 or 7 major regulation changes that affect us and how we kind of interact with each other, and what services we use and how we use those services. So I think that we need to take on a responsibility to keep our community briefed around what those regulations are. We are looking at getting far more material translated. So, for example, we speak quite comfortably in English. We don't speak so good Turkish. But many of our community.
It's the other way around.
Obviously the other way around. So we need to maintain the fact that we need to produce information that is easily accessible by them. We're going to be producing loads of material on what the terminology that's being utilised means. The video that we put out about 3-4 weeks ago, we then translated into Turkish, because we felt it's so important to have it for both, the English speakers and the Turkish speakers. And we're going to put far more information out there, and we're going to also offer, as an organisation, to go out to other organisations to provide support to them into being able to access what they need to make their locations COVID compliant. It's never going to be 100% COVID compliant, but there's easy steps that organisations can take that minimise the risk to general public. So that's what we're trying to do at the moment. And moving forward, we want to make far more information available, and we want to react to what the community. This whole program, to sign up for this program again, is that they're telling us, we in basic terms, what does it mean when they say what is a bubble, what is a group of 6, what is the exceptions? I'll give you another prime example. Young lady came in to do room booking for the hall. We told them that they obviously aware the 30 figure. They're saying, what about kids on top of that? No, kids are included in the 30. So the maximum you can have for a gathering is 30. Oh, is it all right if we dance? No, you can't dance. If you're in your social bubble, you can dance. So the husband and wife or the couple who are getting married, they can dance, but other people who are there, who are in their individual bubbles, can't, because you're instigating interaction with people outside the individual's own social bubbles. If that makes sense. So that's what causes issues. So I think that we need to be basically looking at how we kind of provide that information out there, and we need to be able to look at how we communicate that to the community so they're kind of aware of it. Now that's a prime example of, like, you're having a wedding, and you can like look at how we provide that information out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, I really like the way you described it about the wedding. When you're in your own bubble, your own household, so to speak, you can dance or you can interact. But if you're out of that, then you can't. And most people, like you said, their families are six, basically, or a bit less. But it's very unusual to be a bit more. But if you are, then you're exempt with that.
I mean, like one of the other things about it, Aisha, was that with regards to the way we set up in preparation that we can be as COVID safe as possible. So, for example, we set up tables of a maximum of 6 people on circular tables if there's a wedding function. So therefore that 6 people, more than 6 people, won't be able to go there. We also, when we do the track and trace with those, we ensure that the 6 people that are utilising that table are from the same bubble and they've arrived together. So there's far more precautions that we need to take. And to be honest with you, within our community, we're quite lax on general rules. When they go into grey area rules, then they're not always adhered to. And I think we need to try to ensure that wherever possible, we give out accurate figures. They're not there to form a judgment on whether the rules and regulations are right. We're there to provide the information in a manner that is accessible by members of our community.
I mean, we're getting lots of supportive comments and positive feedback at the moment, so you know, I'm hoping that this is quite clear to our audiences. I think a lot of people have been asking questions, so I think this is very useful, and like we've said, we're going to be doing this on a at least minimum 2 weekly run where we're updating our viewers with all the different changes. I think it's something that we do need to accept, that in certain pockets around the local area there will be restrictions being put into place over the next couple of weeks. I mean, what else should we expect within the next couple of weeks?
I think Aysen, with regards what we should expect, so what the new announcement has done is it's put a greater reinforcement on the fact that the police authorities or the policing authorities, in every which way that they are, will be given more powers, and they'll be looking at instigating the usage of those powers to ensure that these rules are maintained within our community. So I think you will see far more of that. I think the other things that we're going to see is that areas such as Enfield and Haringey, and areas that we have high levels of Turkish Cypriots and Turkish speaking individuals, that we're going to find that we're already finding it's very, very high, the amount of the R rate, as they say.
Yes.
And so it's 1 or very close to 1. And when it goes above 1, obviously the figures start rising dramatically in those areas. So those areas are very close, and depending on how they're viewed by central government, the areas might be put on lockdown. And what does that mean to those communities? What further restrictions are come into play? So I think that's also something we need to bear in mind. We as a group as well, if you remember, we set up this emergency group that is made up of about 4 or 5 organisations. We're trying to enlarge that major group to incorporate other groups, and the group is ready to move in if there is another emergency that was similar to the lockdown that occurred when COVID was first rising in really high figures. So that's already ready to go. I think the other thing that we need to kind of say is that the initiative that we also created is also ready to go. We've got good links with obviously Edible London, which are there for us, and we've maintained that link, and we're there. If things have to happen tomorrow, they will happen tomorrow. You know, we will ensure that no one is left alone, and we will carry on doing what we're doing. I think the other thing that we've noticed, and I think things that we need to take hold of as a community, is that we've got so many problems which are coming about outside of the health-related issues in relation to COVID, in relation to employment. So there's these new kickstart schemes that have started up, and that's mainly to bridge the gap of the amount of skilled individuals that we have within the young workforce that are now not able to work. I mean, in January, there was 300,000 odd people claiming universal credit who were under the age of 25. I think as of last month, it was very close to or just above 1 million. So there's an exponential rise in the amount of people that are claiming these benefits. And we as an organisation have utilised looking at other organisations like Edible London and other organisations, and we believe we will be leading a consortium bid to try and attract some of those workers into our work so that they can be trained, they can be upskilled, and in 6 months' time, hopefully, when the environment is different, they'll have a place to go with new skills and with the prospect of being employed. So I think it's
very positive. Where can you get? I mean, if we want some up-to-date information, we can go onto the TCCA's website, can we?
Yeah, I mean, what
get some of this information as well.
Just a little bit about TCCA at the moment. TCCA is reorganising. We're doing a massive reorganisation. So most of the information we're throwing out there is via Facebook. We have, I think, a total of 6 websites. We're going through each one by one and rejigging them. We're rejigging the way we give out information. We're rejigging how the organisation operates, because at the moment we've got 3 offices, and that will probably rise to about 4 to 5 in the next 6 to 8 months. So we're reorganising how we operate as an agency and as an organisation. So the best place at the moment is via Facebook feed. In about 6 weeks' time, Facebook feed will be mirrored by our new website, which would have a myriad of information and also very easy to access certain information that's out there, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but I think
and we're going to be supporting you as well, obviously, with these programs to put the information out there, definitely on a regular basis.
I think actually the other thing is that you've said it millions of times before. I've said it, Gulai said it, and everyone else involved in Halil and all of the others. But we're building a structure here that utilises the skill sets of each one of these amazing bodies within the Turkish Cypriot community around utilising those skills, and means that we can use those various platforms that are out there to be able to better engage with our community, away from any infighting, away from any like trying to win points. We just express like Eurogench is the most amazing body to be able to communicate effectively via social media streams and also the other platforms that they have. You've got the other groups which are out there, like the TCC UK site, which is an amazing platform which has 11,000 people, and the other platforms also, the worldwide platform, all the others, and all these organisations that we have that are working so effectively during COVID, trying to build on that. So we're trying to build a new identity where us as a community can show that we can work together and have no remit around who is welcomed as part of this group of working people, as long as the definition is to serve our community.
That's right. I think so, and we'll keep drilling that message across. And I think most of the community are for that. And I really think over the last couple of months during the lockdown and COVID-19, what with social media becoming so important, a real form of communication, I think our community has come together, and certainly all of the specialities of all these different groups have been highlighted, and we need to move that forward. We've got lots of comments. Yes.
I was saying one other thing is that I mentioned that unemployment. I mean, in the sphere of employment and unemployment, there's a whole myriad of other areas that I haven't even touched on that we need to touch on. You know, things like mental health, addiction, all those sorts of things are on massive rises, more than we can ever see. And it's just been put to one side because we're so focused on COVID and
we're
dealing
on a crisis situation.
That all the other things which are rising that were lacking support in the past, that the need for support in those areas has grown and continued to grow, and we need to find mechanisms or ways that we can ensure that we don't leave those members of our community who are in those problem areas, and we need to be advocates for helping them, and also to be able to give that a voice to the people who make decisions within the politicians and the various people who make decisions around how effectively we deal with supporting our community.
Yeah, that is my focus for the next cycle, for sure, is giving voice to those people that, you know, haven't necessarily got a voice, for sure. And I think very much so. I want to touch upon a lot of those different areas that you were talking about. You know, lots of different things have been affected due to COVID-19, and our statistics for certain things have risen and are vulnerable, are even more vulnerable now. So we need to be aware of that as a community, and certainly try and support them whichever way we can. Zeynep has said hayırlı yayınlar. Ergun Karpazlı has said hayırlı yayınlar. That means in English, good broadcasting, I think. Fatima has said, good to see you all back, guys. Thank you very much. Like we said, for the COVID-19 updates, that probably will happen 2 weekly unless we need it more often. So we will sort of gauge as to how the situation is, and we will, you know, react to that. But the latest printed press is here every week. Neja's put hayırlı yayınlar. Nadia has some right. I'm going to try and read this. Hayırlı uğurlu çalışmalar, hayırlı işler. Aysen Djemal, Erim Metto, TCCA. I think I read that correctly. And then good Neil has put a very important question out there, and I'm part of this, being a teacher, and I don't know really what the answer is to this. It's quite a difficult one, but she's put, do you think the way schools are dealing with COVID is effective? Are these bubbles really the solution? I mean, I can say, first of all, as a teacher, I think schools are really trying their best. I think the head teachers, the staff are being real champions. I think the pupils are, the parents, we're all working together to try and make it work. I'm not sure if the bubbles are really the solution, but it's certainly a way forward for now. You know, we have head teachers who've been head teachers for nearly 30, 40 years, and they're quite baffled by what's happening currently, you know, and their experience is really being stretched. But I think what we need to do is just all try and follow the rules. Whatever rules are put into place in school, outside, we need to try and adhere to it. I think I would say that. Whether it works or it doesn't work, I think we need to abide by the rules. I don't know what else you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean,
Erim?
on a personal level, I feel that the different schools adopt the principles of safe distancing and their own kind of networks and how they work within the schools in their own way. Now, one of my daughter's schools, the younger one, the parents, when they drop off their kids, they're mingling. So they're acting outside their bubbles. They're mingling. So the chances of catching the virus within that environment is substantive, because you're breaking down all the basic rules. No mask. You're breaking down the rules of social distancing. A lot of them are touchy. And that hasn't been stopped. When the children go into school, they're being kept in classroom bubbles, which is limited to 30. So they go into classroom bubbles. And I think the bigger threat is from the parents drop off and pick up and then mixing with others that will instigate any other issues to, you know, related to the spread of the virus. So I think that's a bigger problem for me, is the way that the parents actually deal with it rather than schools. Now, with regards to the schools and how the schools are operating, that's a chuck up in the air, because if kids are going to school, then there's a chance for them to catch the virus. But then you negate that with the educational needs of the young people. Now, I know a lot of the universities haven't gone back, and they're not going to go back until later on in October. But all this needs to be balanced out, and I don't know if I'm the right person for that. Is the balance of gaining an education related to the aspects of potentially catching the virus, which way it weighs or which way it goes. But what we're doing is advising what the rules are and how those rules have been put into place by the government, and how we need to be dealing with those rules.
You know, I don't know how effective it is or not effective, I think we're all sort of learning as we're going along. But I
Yeah,
think what's essential is that whatever the government guidelines are, that we adhere to them, whether
yeah.
it be in school or outside of school. I think that's very important. Osman Hassan has said, well done, Erim. Great work that you have been doing to help those that need help and encouraging others to get involved. Thank you very much, Osman Hassan. It is amazing what Erim has been doing. He's been
No,
working relentlessly.
all of us.
Yeah, all of us. Yes, of course. But
Yeah,
you're pulling us all together, which is great. Miriam has put Hayla Yayinlar, and Abby Hussein has put, how about people using their own common sense to try and stay safe?
no,
Well,
that's
that's what
true.
we're trying to say.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, there is a lot of grey areas, and I think
yeah.
those grey areas are the ones where common
Mm,
sense needs to come into play. So, like when you
mm,
do mingle with other people and
mm,
someone's got a
mm.
cough or high temperature and that sort of thing, then use your common sense. But unfortunately, in our society, not everyone uses common sense. As we see in day out. And yeah, I mean, my principle is exactly the same as what Abby Hussein's saying: is that utilize your common sense when you're mingling with others and when you're out there and when you're going in stores, when you're, whatever you do within your own environment, use your common sense. That needs to be a starting principle, then adhere to the rules that are out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know it can be confusing, but like we said, we're going to try and help the community. We'll give these updates
Yeah.
on a 2 weekly basis at the moment. But if need be, if the need arises for it to be
Yeah.
more often, then we will obviously adhere to that as well. People can watch this back on Facebook. It will be shared out on Facebook. And I believe certain people have actually been doing watch parties and sharing it on Twitter for us. And, we've got our pages, also the TCCA page that you can refer to as well. This was meant to be a short program. We've actually reached half an hour. We were only meant to do 20 minutes. So it just shows you really. But thank you very much again, Erim, for coming on my program. And we'll be doing this on a 2 weekly basis, like I just said. But you're a great beacon in our local community, and thank you for all the hard work that you've done over this whole period of time before and in the future. But that's it from us for tonight, from the latest printed press and our COVID special. We hope that you found it useful. Please refer back and watch it again if there's any confusion, because we covered quite a lot of main things and changes that have occurred in the last couple of days. But thank you very much, Erim. Is there anything else you'd like to say before
No,
we
I mean, we're a very strong community. We need to come together. We do come together, and I think that hard times are ahead. Hopefully, we can ride it. But let's not forget about those isolated people, those people who've got mental health issues, those people who are out there on their own. They don't have to be old; they can be young. There's a lot in our community which is suffering that may not open their mouths to say that they're suffering. That we just keep an eye out for everyone in our community is safe, remain safe. If there's an issue that anyone needs help with, then TCCA is always there and doors open. Amazing staff, amazing group of people to help anyone that's out there.
Thank you very much, Erin. From the latest printed press, have a good evening, and from Eurogench TV as well. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Kalitenin, güvenin, hızlı teslimatın adresi Ancon Furniture. Ancon Furniture ailesi olarak yeniliklerle hizmete devam etmekteyiz. Dünyada bir ilk ürünlerimizden full otomatik açılır kapanır sandıklı bazamız. Bir dokunuşla açılan, bir dokunuşla kapanabilen, bayanlarımıza, yaşlılarımıza kolaylık sağlayabilen sandıklı bazamız mağazamızda hizmetinize sunulmuştur. Yıl sonuna kadar full ortopedik baza seti alan her müşterimize 2 adet full ortopedik Memoro Visco yastık hediyemizdir. En iyisini biz yapana kadar daha iyisi yok. Ancon Furniture.